So thank you everybody today for joining today's call. I'm Decentralist Dan from the Zcash Foundation. I'm happy to be joined by Arti from the Zcash Community Grants Committee to hear from members of the Tor project to discuss Arti, which is a Zcash Community Grants funded project to rewrite Tor in Rust. We'll be touching on Arti's progress, what's coming next, and how ZCG and Tor align to advance privacy online. We'll get started with some intros from the Tor team, starting with Al.
Hi folks, my name is Al and I'm the fundraising director at the Tor project. I think Alex can go next.
Hi there, my name is Alex. I'm heading up the network team at Tor. We are the team that is responsible for writing Arti and generally and historically all the things that are touching the Tor network. Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm one of the co-founders of Tor. And these days I finally have the lifestyle I want and I can sit in a little room and program all day.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining today. And we also have Arti from the Zcash Community Grants. Arti, if you'd like to give a quick intro.
Sure, I'm Arti, member of the Zcash Community Grants Committee. We review grant proposals to build across several categories in Zcash ecosystem. Our categories and areas of funding are listed on our website, zcashcommunitygrants.org. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Arti. I'll share. I can show. Let's see here. Make sure that's showing. Yeah. So, Arti, would you like to maybe jump into the how ZCG's view on Tor and Arti specifically, and the importance that the committee saw in funding this proposal?
Yeah, sure. Before that, I'd just like to touch on the ZCG and how it works. So we receive a portion of the block reward to fund independent teams entering the Zcash ecosystem to perform major ongoing development for the public good of the Zcash ecosystem. And the Arti development team especially is undertaken by the Tor project developers, an available and effective team working to improve the network level privacy and to deliver internet freedom to undermined communities and individuals around the world. And the Zcash developers and supporters are on a mission to empower individuals with economic freedom by having access to a fair and open currency. So the alignment of values and the Tor team's capability is the reason why ZCG sees funding Arti important.
Fantastic, thank you. Maybe we'll piggyback over to Al to touch on their view on this grant and the importance of long-term grant funding and working with the Zcash community.
Definitely. I think there's a really strong value alignment here with Zcash and Tor around privacy online and providing network level privacy. So that's one of the reasons why we approached ZCG and the Zcash Foundation in the very beginning of several years ago, is that strong value alignment. And something that is really awesome that ZCG has offered to Tor is funding continuity. So we just finished our first year grant and we're starting our second year grant. And as a nonprofit, Tor project is a nonprofit, that stability and that confidence in the work that we're doing allows us to do this in a way such that it is done right and that Tor is stable and we're able to offer a final tool that is really useful to the Zcash community. So I just want to say thank you to ZCG and ZF and the whole Zcash community who's been supportive of this effort, because funding continuity is uncommon, less common than you would think. And this is a big deal in advancing privacy online. And it means that Tor is basically moving into the future with a tool that more people can more easily use. And I think that that advances privacy online for many and allows many different applications to integrate Tor that maybe couldn't have in the past. So I just think that this is a really excellent effort. It's not only good for Tor, but it's good for the whole ecosystem. And it is showing that ZCG is an effective grant maker. And we're really appreciative of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Al. That's great perspective. So next, we'll throw it over to Alex and Nick. They have some slides to share, and we'll dive into some more details around Tor and the Arti project specifically.
Hi, folks.
Sounds good.
I'm Nick. I'll be talking about the first part of the project. So Tor has been around for a couple decades now, and it's going to be just about the biggest open source network for providing communications privacy. But the software itself is certainly showing its age. Back when we started writing it, it was reasonable to do it as a network daemon. It was arguably necessary to do it in C, and we had no choice but to do it with the resources we had, which meant a lot of programmers working really hard and not thinking too much about technical debt. This has kind of ballooned over the years, though, making the current C Tor implementation not really suitable for long-term growth. It's hard to maintain for a lot of reasons, and I'll talk about that for other stuff. So we started at at first as a side thing, and now as a focus of development, working on a Rust Tor implementation called Arti to basically be a better Tor. Fewer vulnerabilities to different kinds of programming mistakes, far better support for embedding. We already have multiple applications embedding Arti, whereas embedding Tor is something in between a dark art and a topic best left unconsidered. And right now Arti exists and you can use it for regular Tor traffic. And we're expanding it to support Tor's anti-censorship features, to support onion services, and by the end of the year 2 of the ZCG funding, to be a good replacement for client purposes for the C Tor implementation. We want to replace the relays as well, but that is a topic for later. Next slide, Alex. So as I touched on, and I know there are probably not as many Rust skeptics in the Zcash community as there might be in some other places, but looking back over the years, we actually did in 2014 start tracking all of our severe bugs, all of our bugs that led to possible security vulnerabilities. We made our own little version of the CVE system for this called Trove. Out of the ones affecting the C Tor implementation, about 2/3 of them so far have been mistakes that are easy in C, mistakes that are hard to avoid in C, but hard to make in Rust. This is stuff like memory safety. This is stuff like neglecting to check error codes. This is stuff like string handling vulnerabilities. And yeah, we are excited about our Rust work, and we are excited about moving on forward and completing this work. Can I get the next slide? So in our year 1 work is almost done. We're working on the anti-censorship stuff now. And after I get home, after I'm done talking with everybody today, I'm going to go right back to work on anti-censorship stuff with the rest of the team. But we spent year 1 so far first getting like our high-level APIs stable, getting our code nailed down, getting all of the known security weaknesses solved. Then we focused on usability, performance, and stability. And we've done some good stuff there. I'm sure there are bugs left that people haven't found, but because of the flexibility of Rust, because of the confidence that Rust gives us, we've been able to design with more flexibility than we were in C. And we're actually able to take advantage of our experiences from doing C to do stuff in Rust that we were never able to do in C to begin with. Like, for instance, we run Arti internally as part of our testing in a number of deliberately broken networks to make sure that it behaves well under different kinds of censorship, when the network's down, when your computer's off, when SSL is blocked, when SSL is under an MITM attack, and when all your connections time out, and so on. And so by doing that, we managed to crush bugs that lingered for years in CTOR just because we could test them so much more easily. So we're finishing the anti-censorship stuff now. Should be done within a couple of weeks. After that, we're going to move on to year 2, where we're going to do onion services, which allow responder anonymity in addition to Tor's regular sender anonymity. And we're going to do the rest of the work necessary to be a replacement for the C client. A lot of that is going to be working on missing features that some people need, but the people who need them a lot. And a lot of it's going to work on embeddability, making sure that existing applications can migrate, and making sure that new applications have all the support that they need to embed Arti as a client for the Tor network. And at this point, I'm going to make the first instance of a plea that I think will make a lot of time. If you are interested in someday trying Arti for your own software, please try it as early as possible, because it would be awesome if you tell us about your needs for Arti in the privacy space, in the Zcash space, whatever. If you just tell us about your needs while this funding is going on, we will have a so much better time than if you say, you know, after we're done with this stage, here's what I wish you had spent that time on. Here's what I wish you had worked on. So yeah, please test early, test often. Let us know what you need. We want to hear it. Yeah, and beyond year 2, we want to keep going. We want to replace all of the C and have the whole network running on a Rust implementation for stability, for performance, and for long-term maintainability, so that this software can have can be successful over the next 20 years. Next, I think Alex is going to talk about measurements and reporting on stuff.
Absolutely.
But before I do, I want to say another awesome thing to add what Al said about continuity being great from ZCG. Another thing that's awesome with ZCG is the reporting that we do for ZCG is very, very suitable for open source software development, very natural. It's been, we do a monthly release and we put out a changelog and we put out a blog post, and we make sure that the blog post gets posted to the forums. That is all natural stuff for software development. If ZCG were running like a more traditional funding body, we would be writing multi-page documents that 3 people would ever read, that would take like person weeks of time that could be spent on developing software instead. So I just want to do a big thank you for that instead. I really like this system a lot. It works great. And now I'll mute myself and go over to Alex.
Thank you, Nick. I'm actually going to pick it up immediately from what Nick was just saying. Historically, when we work in Tor on different kind of projects, we have a set of engineers and a set of different grants that we're working on, which means that all of our engineers, we usually have to shuffle around between the different grants during the weeks. The kind of continuity this grant has given us has meant that we've been able to actually have engineers focusing specifically on these deliverables full time. And that has done absolute wonders to the progress that we've been able to do. Right now, the team that Nick and I are part of, the network team, we currently have 3 out of 7 members are dedicated full time to Rust and the Arti deliverables. We have internally decided that we want to put a lot of our investments into Arti, which means that we have drastically decided to reduce sort of the promises that we're making to CTOR releases. Like, we're still currently maintaining CTOR in parallel, but with much lower efforts than before. We have stopped having what we called a long-term support. This is something you might be familiar with from different operating systems, if you, for example, are using different Linux distributions. We have decided to no longer have those and instead focusing on more rolling releases still for CTOR, because this is necessary for running the Tor network still. We will continue to support CTOR for a little while because even though we're working towards the goal of Arti sort of replacing the entire software stack in the Tor ecosystem, we still have a little bit of engineering to do before we are done with that. But especially this whole thing, being able to have a team focus specifically on one software project, have done wonders for us so far. So if you are a Rust programmer, many people have this idea that Tor is a very complicated and very difficult thing to sort of get involved with. If we are running the project and the organization very much like many of the free software projects that you might be familiar with from different communities. I believe the Zcash community is also doing these things. We have our day-to-day development is happening on IRC. This is very old school, but we have a lot of community members who are very happy with that. We hang out on #TorDev on the OFTC IRC network. We are also accessible via Matrix, so you can join #TorDev at the matrix.org server. We use our own GitLab service. It's possible for everybody to register an account there and sign up and contribute to all of the projects that we're doing as part of the Tor development process. Arti is specifically located on GitLab torproject.org/tpo/core/Arti. We have CI and all these things that you would expect from modern software projects if you want to contribute. The only thing you need to really know is a bit of Rust. You will absolutely learn the Tor parts as you progress. If you decide to sign up for our GitLab, you can track a lot of the efforts that are happening using our issue tracker. We use merge requests for code that's incoming from the team and from other contributors. And we also use these boards to check what's going on right now amongst the developers. What are they working on explicitly right now? We do coordination on IRC as well, where you can ask if there's something that you could help with or that you could begin working on if you want to start with something from scratch. Additionally, as Nick went over with the roadmap list, we also try to track the different major releases on GitLab. We track those as milestones. We're still missing to create a few of these milestones, but you can sort of track what's happening under the milestone tabs on our GitLab instance. With that being said, that was that for this presentation.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Quickly, I don't know if Addy, if you have any questions. I was wondering if it'd be okay if I asked about, could somebody touch on the anti-censorship features briefly? That just intrigues me. I'd like, I think the community would be interested in knowing a little bit more about that.
Sure. So in the earliest days of Tor, our designs for anti-censorship were centered around the idea of trying to make Tor traffic look as much like web browser TLS traffic as possible. Over time, we found that that wasn't, practically speaking, going to work. So we moved in two directions at once. One of them was increasing the number of bridges. Those are unlisted Tor relays that you find out about through some means, like going to our Get Bridges service, finding out from a friend, asking a help channel or something like that. And those are given out slowly and carefully enough that there's usually a good amount of time before all of the censors figure out and block them. Another approach is the use of so-called pluggable transports. And the idea of pluggable transports is to decouple the traffic scrambling problem from the privacy problem. So you're using the main Tor protocol to get all of the privacy that it provides, but you're using a different layer on top of it to get your censorship resistance. When we started it, there were just a couple of simple little super encryption things, but now there are some really sophisticated domain fronting tools. There's some really sophisticated traffic scrambling stuff. Honestly, my head is so far in the weeds that Alex would be better to talk about the actual specific ones that we're promoting these days, but
I can absolutely do that. So as Nick mentioned, we have this pretty fancy way of decoupling the anti-censorship story from the core Tor thing. This has turned out to be great. It means that inside of Tor, we have a dedicated anti-censorship team. of some of the absolute experts in these kind of domains, who is working on building different tools, analyzing when censorship events is happening all over the world, and trying to mitigate sort of the new technologies that are happening. It is a bit of what we call an arms race, unfortunately, where the censors gets better, and then our tiny little anti-censorship team have to also make progress and find ways to get through. We've seen a lot, especially this year, with countries that where we've seen pretty big censorship events. We've had Iran recently with everything that's going on there. We've had both Ukraine and Russia, where where things are not looking so great. Where our team has been working with a tremendous amount of skills to figure out what is the mechanisms that are happening that are causing the different censors and the different actors in these areas to cause that people are not able to reach the internet, and have managed to, with great success, to also provide a service to people in these countries so that they're able to reach the internet, even though the entire reality of their life right now is not looking so great. We see often when there's censorship events that people look to Tor for an answer. We've seen, if we look at the different application stores that exist on mobile devices, Tor has been topping the charts when these kind of things happens, because there is this general notion amongst many of these people that Tor is one of the solutions that they can go to when something like this happens. And we will absolutely do our best to be able to provide something for them in these situations.
Awesome. That was great insight. Thank you, guys. Let's see. Eddie, do you have any questions?
Yeah, sure. So can someone touch on the advocacy efforts of Tor, especially once the Arti and Tor mobile libraries are delivered? How do we plan to get more projects adopt these new developments?
Should I go, Nick? Is that okay? Okay. So I've been working a lot with different people who are doing integration with Tor. As Nick mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, that we've had sort of this issue that the architecture behind the original CTOR code base has been very much designed around how computers were working back when Tor was brought into the world. So there are some people who have had successes. Interestingly enough, many of the wallet projects that exist for different cryptocurrencies have had successes with integrating Tor into their system. But in the mobile space, it has been much harder. So one of the things we're going to do is that Arti itself is actually designed around a library with all the things that you expect from a library. It has documentation, it has example codes for how to use it in different use cases, all the way from the basic stuff to making an HTTP request, which is a very common thing for all applications that is trying to reach an API anywhere in the world, over to when we eventually have onion services, which is likely going to be one of the big things that people would want to do integration with, that we want people to be able to have onion services running inside of their software. So documentation, having example codes, being able to go out and talk with different communities, a bit like what we're doing today, and having a bit of a conversation with what's going on and what kind of needs does people have when they want to integrate Tor into their stuff. There are many people who have looked to us to try to figure out what they can do with Tor themselves, and that just had to give up because it's very technically very hard to integrate the current CTOR code base into anything.
Understood.
Awesome.
And maybe if someone can touch on the latest news that I see from Tor project, that is to update to Tor browser 11.5.6.
That has, I have actually not tracked what's there. I saw there was the news. I'm mostly a Tor browser user in that sense. I don't know if the two of the other you wants to say.
I can say something about it.
Okay, great.
So there was a release a couple of days ago that introduced an error that made it difficult or impossible to connect to the Snowflake pluggable transport. And this is relevant to like a subsection of Tor browser users. So if you don't use Snowflake or you don't use bridges to connect to the Tor network, it doesn't impact you. But if you do, you need to upgrade to 11.5.6, and that will fix the Snowflake issue.
Thank you.
Maybe one more question that came to mind on my end was just if somebody could touch briefly on the importance of network level privacy using Tor and Arti specifically in blockchain protocols, for example, like Zcash down the line.
Sure, I can give it a shot. So I'm not going to try to say too much about its privacy properties on Zcash. I'm going to assume people here are generally pretty conversant. In a lot of cases, though, you want additional privacy about your network activities. You may want them, for example, you may not want your local ISP, your the coffee shop that you're in or whatever, to know that you're connecting to Zcash network when you're connecting to the Zcash network, building up like a list of every single time when you're connecting and so on. And although the actual transactions you're doing have a fair amount of privacy, the fact that you're connecting is not itself very well hidden. Also, unless you're a very unusual person, like you have activities that are related to your financial activities that are not themselves financial. That is, you're talking about financial decisions you're making. If you're buying or selling or trading or something, you're talking with other people to do that. If you're funding somebody to do work, you're talking with them. That communication itself leaks as much or more information about your private transactions. So I think there is a kind of natural symbiosis going on where private communications can help private transactions be private and also can help them exist. That is, if there's no one you can talk to privately, there's no one, it's not clear how you would set up to do transactions privately. And similarly, the existence of private transactions enables a lot more types of private communication to be necessary and be useful. So I think that in that ways, they're kind of co-supporting parts of the same ecosystem, both for directly being used together and for supporting the same kinds of increased privacy in day-to-day life. Anyone have something to add?
I wanted to add, like everything you just said is right, but I also want to add that when we were just talking about the anti-censorship angle, when you are in a place where you experience censorship, where they might be able to shut down access to specific protocols using different fingerprinting mechanisms, if you have this ability to compose both anti-censorship technology and network privacy, those two are a really, really good companion with each other, and being able to both prevent yourself from being exposed in case there is some kind of failure later on, where you're able to look at traffic that happened, even in the censorship event, where you're able to access things using the anti-censorship technology, then having the network privacy on top of that is absolutely crucial.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So I think we'll start wrapping it up here. I know we briefly touched on some call to action throughout the call, but if any of the Tor folks would like to give some parting words and maybe retouch on how the Zcash community can be helpful with a call to action, that would be great.
I can talk a little bit generally about how you can help the Tor project, and then I think Alex and Nick can talk specifically about how you can help with Arti. So the Tor project is a 501c3 nonprofit. We run on donations and grants. So if you want to make a contribution to the Tor project in a monetary way, that helps us do this work, and it helps us do this work in an agile and flexible way, because your donations are not attached to any specific project. So kind of similarly to the amazing opportunity that ZCG has given us to work in a flexible way, so does your individual donation empower that. And you can make a contribution at donate.torproject.org. You can also do things like run relays, translate our software and our documentation, or just be a part of our community and use Tor browser, because anonymity loves company, and you using the network benefits you and it benefits everyone else on the network. So those are some general things you can do, and I'll hand it over to the tech experts to talk about what you can do for Arti.
You want to start, Nick?
Sure, I'll start and you can close. So yes, I think for me, the most useful stuff would be to try the software out. If you are thinking you'd like to embed a Tor solution, right now, if you're up for embedding something in Rust or in Java, we have things that you can look at. If you want something in a different language, we think it'll be a couple months out, but we would love to be engaged with you early on to make sure that what we're building would be useful to you. If you're just interested in trying the software out, right now there are instructions for running a Tor browser using Arti as its backend instead of the CTOR implementation. Those, now you won't be able to use the anti-censorship features and because they aren't done yet, and you won't be able to use onion services, but the regular internet traffic should work fine, and we'd love bug reports. And even if you can't figure out how to do that, if you don't want to or if you go to look at it and it seems too hard, just let us know where you got stuck. We want to treat everybody who if you can't figure it out, it's probably us, not you. So we need like better documentation, and just knowing where people looked and what they didn't find there will help us get better documentation and better explanations so that the next person won't get stuck in the same way. And yeah, like Alex said, also, like, it is a fun project to hack on. We've had more people contributing patches to Arti since it began than we have in CTOR in total for several years. I think that a large part is because the Rust code is more comprehensible. It's less spaghetti-like. Also, the stakes for programming in Rust are less terrifying. You are very unlikely to accidentally introduce a security vulnerability into Arti by writing a simple string parser or using a pointer to point. So yeah, give it a shot. It is fun. And that's for me.
I'm gonna echo what Nick said, but I want to add something to it. We've for so long had people come to us and talk about their ideas for what they want to do with embedding Tor and where they're struggling with that. With Arti, we really hope that people will pick up their creative sides. If you have some awesome things that you've been thinking about building where network security is beneficial, where you want it to work in areas where there's censorship and you want to be able to provide that for your user, come tell us about what it is you're trying to do, where you were stuck, what we need to provide for you to be able to do the kind of experiences that you're interested in building. Because this is a new area for us. We have had people who've been capable of integrating Tor into their stuff, but we really hope to see many creative things that we were not even able to think of ourselves. One of the things we're working on right now in parallel to the sort of core Arti things that are happening is we're trying to build a VPN solution. That is something we've been talking about for a long time, that it would be very difficult to do and it would be very difficult to get right. But now we're trying to approach it. We have the means to do it. We have the people to do it. We have a very flexible code base that we can modify and provide the APIs necessary for these kind of things. So we feel much more comfortable talking about embeddability than we've been before. And we really hope that that people out there is going to pick it up and give us the feedback to make it even better.
Awesome. Thank you guys for that. So I think we'll wrap it up here. I'd like to thank everyone who joined the call to listen in. Ryan for his help on the AV for this call, and to all the panelists today. I'd like to mention that this call has been recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube shortly for those that weren't able to attend, and we will share that link throughout all the socials in the forum. Just another quick reminder to please check out the ZCG website at zcashcommunitygrants.org for more information on the grants program. And then please check out, you can follow the Arti project's progress on the Zcash community forum seen here. And you could feel free to ask questions. Feel free to reach out to any of the grants committee members or tag the Tor folks and to continue this conversation going forward. So yes, thanks to everybody for joining, and I look forward to doing this again. Appreciate it.